friends, welcome to the lecture Cinema and Dr. B. R. Ambedkar. In the earlier lecture on the same theme, we talked about some of the films of Dr. B. R. Ambedkar and the way he was being portrayed in the films. We also talked about the contribution of Dr. B. R. Ambedkar in the framework of the constitution making. We also talked about that how initially we do not find many films on Dr. B. R. Ambedkar in the later times, especially in 1970s, and thereafter we find that how Dr. Ambedkar's photograph, portrait, etc., they have been shown in some of the films. But even then, we do not find many films on Dr. B. Ambedkar in the initial years of the Indian independence, despite the fact that he played an important role in the framework of the constitution making, and his ideas of social justice and social equality, they were very well part of the Indian constitution. How they also showed the kind of light or the path to the Indian policy makers in the framework of amelioration of the various sections of the society. And we also talked about that how Ambedkar believed in removal of the caste disparities, and he also felt that illiteracy was one of the main threats to democracy. So he laid a lot of emphasis on education, and he also felt that how over a period of time the various ills which are there in the society with regard to pride, oppression, egotism, they should give way, and any kind of a corruption which is there in the society should be removed. And he also talked about the idea of social justice, where he conveys that the dignity of the people, those who are downtrodden and destitute, it should be there. So he in a way was talking about the identity of the people and how that particular identity of people should be recognized and appreciated, and it should not be oppressed in any way. And he also in a way trusted that the popularity based goals of life, freedom and satisfaction were necessary for a fulfilling human existence, and he placed a higher priority on protecting the human rights. He supported the democracy because in anarchy and dictatorship liberty is lost. So we find that his ideas they were very relevant from the framework of an egalitarian society, where everyone gets some kind of equality in the society, where people are not discriminated against each other on various kinds of lines which have been drawn. And in that sense, we find that Dr. Ambedkar played an important role in the framework of the idea of nation building. And when we see that how Mumbai became the epicenter of Dr. Ambedkar's activity, but the city's film industry ignored the anti-caste movements Ambedkar was spearheading at that point of time. And we find that even after independence, Dr. Ambedkar's contribution to the nation building was not featured in any movie, and Dr. Ambedkar's fight against the cruel practice of untouchability was not acknowledged, despite the fact that even when the subject was shown in films like Achut Kanna in 1936 and Sujata in 1959. So we find that how during this particular period from 50s, 60s and the early part of 70s, we do not find many films on his ideas. And we see in 1970s, when you talk about the Nouvelle Vague or the New Wave cinema, which came in India, how it was inspired by the French New Wave, and it was also referred to as the art cinema or the parallel cinema. So it was also talking about some of the aspects which were there in the society. Films like Ankur in 1974 or Manthan in 1976 and Par in 1984 and Damul in 1985. So they were talking about various kinds of issues. Ankur in the framework of the caste maltreatment, or Manthan in the framework of caste issues, Par in the framework of the caste violence, and how we also find Damul in the framework of the landless or the bonded labor. So we find that some or the other idea which was related to the discrimination of the people on the various kinds of lines, it was being reflected in some of the films of that particular period. And parallel cinema, we find that many of the filmmakers like Shah Manigal, Ketan Mehta, Govind Nilani, all these people, those who were associated, Manal Sen for that matter, they were associated with the making of this particular parallel cinema, which was largely, which was also Hindi, but at the same time, people like G. Arvindan, etc., those who were also playing an important role in the framework of films which were made in South India. So we find that how when you see the parallel cinema or you see the new wave Indian cinema, how it was trying to make some kind of depictions which were borrowed from the reality, which was trying to portray the poor and the miserable lives of the Dalits and generally believe them to be the victims of crime committed against them because of their caste. So we find that such kind of depictions, they were also happening in the parallel cinema. And we find that many a times the political and the social ideals of this section was not given much attention, and there were more films like Arakshan which were made on caste reservation. So we find that films, they were also dealing with various kinds of issues which are there in the society, issues which are being debated in the society, and filmmakers, they were aware about these kinds of issues. And we also in a way realize that how Dr. Ambedkar's contribution in the framework of the constitution was very, very important, that he in a way incorporated this idea of reservation, which was seen to be an affirmative action for the upliftment of the diverse section of the society, those who were at the lower rungs of the societies, how these people they are being given some kind of a reservation in the various government jobs and educational institutions, and their condition can be improved. And apart from that, there were other films like Masan, which was made in 2015, which was also on the helplessness of the downtrodden section of the society and the kind of problems with which they are inflicted, and how they are not able to come out of the situation in which they find themselves. And we also see another film called Majhi, which was The Mountain Men, which again came in 2015, which was on the maltreatment of a low caste community and one's men fight against that oppression. So this particular film was talking about a person who lost his wife because there was no passage where he could go to the hospital, but he was the one who created that passage. He was the mountain man who in a way created a road in that particular mountain so that people can move from one area. So the issue was important in the framework, that they were in a way disadvantaged, they did not have access to that health care which they should have been. And at the same time, how that particular person in a way was fighting against all sorts of oppression and corruption which was there in the society, and he emerges as victorious. That was also being reflected in this particular film. Thereafter, we also see a film called Article 15, which was in Hindi and which was talking about the constitutional safety of all the citizens vis-a-vis the caste oppression. And Super 30 again, a film which was made in 2019, where we find that it was talking about a man's fight to improve the situation of the oppressed. So we find that these kinds of efforts by the filmmakers, by talking about such issues, by portraying them in the films so that they can be debated. And Super 30 was based on life of one Anand Kumar, who started a coaching center on his own when he was not successful for himself, and how he was able to churn out so many people from the disadvantaged section of the society, and how all these people, they got selected to the various IITs. So it was also showing a person's effort in the framework of improving the situation of the oppressed section, the people those who do not have that kind of an access to education and the resources of the society. So we find that the filmmakers, they were aware about what was happening in the society, because this film was also taken from the reality, as I told you, one Anand Kumar, and how he and so this was one portrayal, but we'll also see that there are so many others apart from this particular fellow, those who are doing their bit for the society. Many of them, they are not in a way recognized, they are not being shown to the masses, but at the same time they are continuously engaged and doing this kind of a good work, where they are able to bring some kind of a change, or some kind of a betterment to the lives of other human beings. And we find that another film, Jai Bhim, which was in Tamil, and Jayanti again in Marathi. These two films, they show the battles of the marginalized populations to obtain the human rights, while also portraying egregious socioeconomic inequities, feudal maltreatment, and caste violence. So we find that how these films, they were also were talking about the human rights, and how marginalized sections of the society, they are not being given those kinds of rights, and their rights, if they are being denied to them, then how any kind of a maltreatment to them, any kind of a violence or inequality which is there, that should be removed from the society. And some scholars, they have in a way argued that how this kind of a cinema, which was talking about the downtrodden section of the society, then this cinema should be seen as a new Dalit cinema. Some kind of a subgenre should be assigned to it, and also an indication that Dr. Ambedkar's societal vision is beginning to be represented in popular cinema. So we find that these kinds of themes which were dealing with these issues, they were being taken up by some of the filmmakers and also critics, those who pointed out that how such kind of portrayals were definitely playing an important role in the society. And it was also very important from the point of view that how Dr. Ambedkar was not shown just after the independence in many of the films which were made. So in a way, the recognition which should have come to Dr. Ambedkar immediately after independence, which was not shown in the films, was later in a way portrayed in many of the films which were directly dealing with him or were inspired by his ideals. And we also see that how when we talk about Jabbar Patel's film, in which Mammootty portrayed Dr. Ambedkar in that particular film, which was titled Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar, The Untold Truth. And this particular film came in the year 2000, and we find that in this particular film, Ambedkar's life and contributions to the liberation of India's oppressed classes are highlighted. So this film was definitely an important film in that particular framework, that it received so many awards as well, and it tries to show the life of Dr. Ambedkar, that how when he was in Columbia University, and later when he became the chairman of the drafting committee of the Indian Constitution. And we find that how the person who played the role of the protagonist, Dr. Ambedkar, in this particular film, Mammootty, he won the National Film Award for the Best Actor in an English feature film. And we also find that how this particular film is considered to be one of the most important milestones in the framework of the cinema which was made on Dr. Ambedkar. And it has been one of the most significant films as well. And we find that when you talk about this particular film, then we find that apart from Mammootty, who played that impressive role of Dr. Ambedkar. The other characters of the films, like the character of Asnodkar, an acquaintance Ambedkar made while studying in London, was portrayed by Sushant Singh, who impressively displayed his immense acting talent. So we find that how Sushant, who played an acquaintance in that sense, and who is a very fine actor, also acted in this particular film. And this film was co-funded by the government of Maharashtra in the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, and the Indian government's film development arm, NFDC, National Film Development Corporation, controlled the production. And when you talk about the songs in the films like Kabir Kahe and Buddham Sharanam Gacchami, they convey the spirit against the caste system and make a plea for equality in society. So we find that how definitely songs, they play an important role in the Indian society, and we find that in every film we have 5 to 6 songs nowadays. Earlier they used to be more. And how songs, they are part of our culture, and for every occasion we have songs from our birth till our death. Various kinds of milestones which are there in our lives, we'll find songs for every occasion. So in this particular film, we find that the songs which were part of this particular film, they were also trying to carry the story forward, where we find that the ideals of Dr. Ambedkar, they were being portrayed in this particular film. And when you talk about other ideals of Dr. Ambedkar, that how he said that the personal laws should be distinct from the religious laws in a secular society, and that religion should not be allowed to dominate all elements of human activity. So he had a clear differentiation with regard to these kinds of ideas. And we also find that Dr. Ambedkar argued that the directive principles would be legally non-binding, but the governing party that won the most seats in parliament or the legislative assembly would be expected to adhere to them as part of their economic program, regardless of what they said in their manifesto. They would also be bound by the constitution. So we find that the ideals of Dr. Ambedkar, the ideas which he had with regard to directive principles, where he felt that they would be non-binding legally, but at the same time he was also aware, and he also expected the various political parties or the government which came, that they should abide, or they should in a way follow the directive principles in such a manner that they are being taken care of. And we also see that how if political parties, they tend to ignore the directive principles many a times, then they are not able to do well in the elections. So they are, even if they are non-binding, as Dr. Ambedkar argued, but at the same time we find that they play an important role in the framework of the elections as well. And another film, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, which was made in 2005 by Sharan Kumar Kapoor, addressed the socio-economic changes Ambedkar wanted to see in society, as you can see on the screen as well. So this particular film followed his life from his early years to his passing away. And when you talk about the ideas of Dr. Ambedkar, we find that Dr. Ambedkar argued that the social requirement for safeguarding the best, having ordinary moral principles, and protecting the development of the person comprises the solidarity and the unity of society. So we find that when Dr. Ambedkar is talking about these kinds of ideas, and these kinds of ideas, they were very relevant from the point of view of preserving the development or developing the person in that sense, and how it was also linked to the solidarity and the unity of the society as well. So we find that Dr. Ambedkar made a lot of efforts in the framework of the establishment of the various political parties and the kind of activism which he showed, and he also placed a lot of value on the people's ability to choose their affiliations in the various spheres of life, and he believed these institutions were the fundamental foundation of democracy and freedom. And we find that he also established various political parties. For example, he established the Independent Labour Party in 1936, the Scheduled Caste Federation in 1942, and the Republican Party of India in 1956. And when asked to describe the ILP, which was the Independent Labour Party, Gail Omwet said it was not a party with a specific caste, but rather one with a working class identity. It suggested legislation to protect agricultural tenants from exactions and evictions by landlords in general. So we find that the different political parties which were established by Dr. B. R. Ambedkar at different points of time, as he established ILP in 1936 or SCF in 1942 and the RPI in 1956. So at different points of time he established different political parties, and so he was very well aware about the kind of churning which was happening in the society from the political point of view, and he was also ready to take on his political opponents through the organization of the various political parties which he established. And we also find that by 1942 Ambedkar had become tired of the rhetoric used by the Marxist radicals and had disbanded the ILP. He then founded the SCF. So we find that how Dr. Ambedkar was dynamic in terms of his thinking. He also in a way realized that the kind of steps which he had to take at different points of time, and he was also trying to in a way bring about change in the society through his activities, and how we find that his wife also played an important role, where he got support, a lot of support from his wife in terms of the activities which were started by him. And we find that a number of filmmakers, they have definitely tried to portray the ideas of Dr. Ambedkar through the films. And later we also find that some of the filmmakers like Nagaraj Manjule, Ranjit, all these filmmakers, they have also made a number of films which are dealing with the ideals of Dr. Ambedkar. And we find from this particular perspective, as earlier we talked about, that how cinema definitely is an important factor and a medium which tries to convey these kinds of ideals, and the ideals of Dr. Ambedkar in the framework of social justice, social equality, they were being portrayed in many of the films in the later times. And we also find that some of the filmmakers, they have been consistently making all these kinds of efforts where these ideas, they could be shown to the masses in that sense. So from that point of view also, we find that Dr. Ambedkar made a remarkable contribution, not only in the framework of the writing of the constitution, but in the framework of bringing about a lot of awareness in the society. And this kind of awareness definitely would play an important role in terms of bringing about the social change of which Dr. Ambedkar was a votary, and he was very well aware as well in that regard. That is why we find that at different points of time Dr. Ambedkar was talking about providing education to the people, that once they will be provided education, then they will have this kind of a change in their mindset. He was also talking about bringing about social justice, where everyone is being treated equally. He was talking about the equality of all people regardless of the various distinctions which are there in the society. And we find that these kinds of ideals were taken up by some of the filmmakers in the later times, and they tried to portray his ideals in some of these films. So with this, I'd like to end the discussion. Thank you very much.